Hello, dear reader. I am Walter Riso, and today I'm going to reveal something that men would publicly, but that after decades of studying the male mind, I am going to confess without any there is such powerful technique, such a devastatingly effective, that when you are correctly, that man that you like will spend the whole night thinking about you, moving around in bed, asking himself what demons have you to not beat out of their head. And the most incredible is that you will understand why this is happening, but before you continue listening, I want you to do three things right now. First, subscribe to this channel, because what I go and share with you today will radically the way you relate to men. Second, leave me a comment telling me what has been your most frustrating trying to draw the attention of a man, because believe me, you are alone in this. And third, share this video with that friend who always complains that men do not value her as she deserves, because what you're going to learn today can transform her life forever. I am to be brutally honest with you from the first minute. Most women are doing exactly the opposite of what they do to generate genuine in a man. They are pursuing, begging, and asking for attention, and then they wonder why they see it as an option and not as a priority. My dear, after 40 years as a therapist and having worked with thousands of couples, I can assure you that there is a specific neurological to make a man desire you with an intensity that he himself will be to explain. And here is the first revelation that will change your perspective forever. Men do desire what we have guaranteed. Our primitive brain, that which we from our ancestors, hunters, is programmed to pursue what seems unreachable. When a woman shows herself completely available, when immediately to all messages, when cancels its plans of being with us, activates in the male brain what I call the interrupter of complacency. And once that interrupter is activated, my dear, the game is over. But here comes the fascinating, there is a technique, a single technique, that can completely this dynamic. I have seen work once and again in my consultation, and today I am going give to in silverware. But I need you to yourself to listening to me until the end, because if you halfway, you will lose the most powerful that exists to make any man obsess over you in the most healthy and natural. The technique is called magnetic, and before you think it's about making it difficult or playing games, let me explain that this goes much deeper. It is based on solid of neuroplasticity and cognitive that have been scientifically your brain, my dear, is much more powerful than you imagine. And when you learn to use it strategically, can literally reprogram the emotions of any man towards you. Look, for years I have observed a pattern that repeats itself over again of my consultation. Intelligent, beautiful, successful. And she says to me, Walter, I don't understand why I don't look me. I'm a good woman. I ate off her. But seems that I end up being the who strives in a relationship. And every time I hear this, I know exactly what the problem. The problem is not that you are not valuable. The problem is not that you are not attractive. The problem is that you are misapplying your feminine. You are giving all your value in advance. As if you a store that gives away all its merchandise for free, hoping that customers later value the business. And this is how human mind, my dear. The value is through scarcity, not through the abundance given. Now, before you misinterpret me, I'm talking about turning you a cold or manipulative. That's not. I'm talking about recovering your personal power. That stop being the woman who is available for anyone who throws a crutch of attention. Because let me tell you something with the cruelty that characterizes me. A man who does of strive to conquer you is a man who will completely you. And here comes play the neuroscience. When you a man to work for your attention, when you believe in him, or what I call emotional, his brain releases dopamine. The neurotransmitter of pleasure and motivation is the same substance that is when someone is in love with literally. You can make their brain associate you with sensations of pleasure and intense, but only if you know how to activate the correct mechanisms. Most women make the mistake of believing that showing their love and availability, they will achieve that man loves more. Error gariful. We men value what takes to get if you up easily. If you're always there when we feel like looking you, your perceived value automatically decreases. Not because we are evil, but because this is how our brain, but the magnetic is not disappearing like a capricious. It is not ignoring it or treating it badly. It is much more sophisticated than that. It is creating spaces of control where he has to invest emotional and mental in you. It is generating what I call nutritional, that feeling of wanting more of you, without knowing exactly when he will achieve. And let me tell you something that has caught my attention in my years of therapy. The women who are successful with men are not necessarily the most beautiful physically. They are the who better manage their emotional energy. They're the who know when to approach, and they're the who have understood that real seduction is in what you do, that he imagines that he received from you. Have you ever how men obsess over women who seem unreachable? It is a coincidence. It is pure biology. Our brain activates more intensely when the prize is uncertain. When a woman is completely predictable, when we know that she will be there, our brain automatically and stops producing those substances that generate love. But here comes the interesting: you can manipulate the system to your favor in completely ethical and healthy. It is about hurting anyone, but about understanding how the male mind to create more balanced and passionate now. Before revealing the specific, I need you to understand something fundamental about men. We are extremely visual and competitive when that a woman has options, that other men are that her agenda is full of interesting, automatically we perceive as more valuable. This is, I call them a nada if others want it. Must be something special about it. That why so women feel frustrated when they are too available. The man interprets this availability as lack of options, as despair, and his primitive instinct tells that if no else wants, perhaps he should want it so much it cruel. But it is a reality of how we at an unconscious the technique of magnetic takes advantage of precisely this male. When you this technique correctly, the man begins to perceive that you have a full, interesting that you revolve around him, and that awakens his instinct of conquest. He begins to wonder, what you doing? Why don't you immediately to his messages? And that uncertainty generates a cascade of emotions that he interprets as attraction. And here's the trick. It's that you have to be with other men or do extraordinary things. It's that you have to communicate subtly that your world does completely on him, that you are a woman with your own, a life of that is worth living with, or without his presence. Let me you concrete a woman came to my consultation a few months ago. Let's her Patricia. Patricia was obsessed with a co-worker who treated coldly. She sent her messages all the time, invited him lunch, and stayed working until late in just to coincide with him. Result, the guy saw her as another friend. When much, I am the technique of magnetic. In 3 weeks the panorama changed completely. Patricia started arriving earlier to work and leaving earlier. She stopped responding immediately to her messages. When he asked her if she'd have, sometimes she told him that she already had plans. She didn't lie. She simply started making real with friends, to resume hobbies that had abandoned, to invest in herself. The result was spectacular. On 3rd week, he was looking for excuses to talk to her. He asked her about her plans, who she had been would have done on weekend. For first time in months, he the one who started the conversations. And the most beautiful is that Patricia was faking anything. She had reconnected with her own life, with her own interests, and that had made her genuinely more attractive. See how it is about manipulating, but about recovering your own value. When a woman is complete in herself, when she does need the constant of a man to feel good, and radiates a magnetic energy that is irresistible for us. But here comes the most important of this whole technique, the part that most seduction will tell you, because they understand. Magnetic only works if you really convince yourself that you do need that specific man in your life to be happy. If you are pretending to be uninterested, while inside you are desperate for his attention, he will perceive it. Men have a very fine to detect female, even if you try to hide it. That is why the first phase of the technique has nothing to do with him, but with you. Before successfully the magnetic, you have to work on your own self-esteem, on your own personal. You have to reach the point where you can say, I would like you to be in my life, but if my life is still incredible. And let me be clear in something. This is a game. This is personal development applied to relationships. When a woman achieves a state of emotional, not only becomes more attractive for men, but also becomes more selective. It stops conforming with any kind of attention and starts demanding respect and the love it deserves. Now, let's to the practical. How do specifically the magnetic first? You to all the behaviors that are positioning as a woman desperate for attention. Immediately to all her messages. Cancel your plans when he seeks you. Tell all the details of your day. Are always available when he wants to see you. If you yes any of these questions, you are sending the wrong. You are communicating that he is more important than you, that your life revolves around his convenience, that you have nothing better to do than wait his calls. And that, my dear, kills any possibility to generate genuine in a man. The magnetic requires that you radically these patterns. And no, it is not easy at beginning, especially if you're used to being the woman who always says yes, the who is available, the one who always adapts to the schedules and desires of others. But believe me, when I tell you that this change will transform not only your romantic, but your life. Let's start with something simple. When he sends you a message, you respond immediately. It doesn't matter if you're free and you have nothing to do. Wait at least 1 hour, sometimes 2, not because you want him to suffer, but because a valuable woman has a life full of activities and commitments, cannot be on the phone 24 hours a day. And here comes something crucial. During that hour when you respond, do something productive for yourself. Read a book, call a friend, exercise, work on a personal project. Don't stay there looking at the message and counting the minutes. Take that time to invest in your own life. In this way, when you respond, you'll be genuinely occupied, and your response will sound natural, not forced. The second element of magnetic is the unpredictability. We men get a routine of knowing exactly what will happen in each situation if you always react in the same way, if you're always available at the same time, if you always say yes to everything that he proposes. You become predictable and therefore less interesting. That is why you need elements of surprise in the dynamics. Sometimes you say yes immediately to your proposals. Other times that you have plans. Sometimes you have a conversation. Others expect him to do it. Sometimes he shows a lot of interest in what he is doing. Other times he maintains a certain emotional variability, makes him never know exactly what to expect from you. And that keeps his brain in a constant. But what is the powerful about this technique? That you lying or manipulating. You are building a richer and varied for yourself. When you have plans, it is because you really made plans. When you to respond, it because you are doing something important for your personal or professional now. Let me tell you about the third element of the magnetic is the most difficult to master, but also the most effective. The emotional, this means that you have to reach the point where you believe that you the best, that you ate an offer, that any man would be fortunate to be with you. Most women who fight to get male attention suffer from what I call emotional. They believe that if the specific man does not choose will find anyone else. They believe that have to conform with the he gives because it is better than nothing. And this mentality of is at a kilometer. A man can smell the female as a dog smells fear. And when he perceives that a woman is desperate for his attention, he automatically categorizes as low value. Not because she is a bad man, but because our primitive brain associates despair with low genetic is an evolutionary, that we even consciously, that's why fundamental, that you what I call magnetic, you have to convince yourself on a cellular that you are incredible, valuable, interesting, and that any man who doesn't value you completely is losing something extraordinary. And no, this is not arrogance, it's self-respect. When you have emotional, when you really believe in your own value, your energy changes completely. You differently. You differently. You relate differently. Men perceive immediately and almost automatically. They begin to treat you with more respect and consideration. But developing emotional is not something that happens overnight. Especially if you come from years of low self-esteem or toxic, it requires constant self-compassion and a lot of patience with yourself. You have to start treating yourself with the same love and respect with which you your best friend. And here comes something that hurts me to every day in my consultation. Incredible women who conform with men who treat them as second option, who look for only when they have nothing better to do, who keep them in an emotional gray without commitment. My dear, if a man is making a genuine effort to conquer you, to praise you, to win your heart, that man does deserve you. The magnetic is not a technique to get any man. It is a technique to get the men who are worth it, those who are willing to invest time, energy, and emotion in a real men who only want easy without compromise, will disappear when you this technique. And that is precisely what you wanted, because let me tell you something with the brutal honesty that characterizes me. If you have to beg a man to pay attention to, if you to beg for his love, if you have to conform with my love, that man is not for you. A man who really values you will not let you through that humiliation. Now, is fourth element of magnetic that is crucial and that very few women understand emotional coherence. You cannot apply this technique in a manipulative or vengeful. You cannot use absence as a punishment. When it does behave as you want it, that would be toxic. And that not what I am talking to magnetic has to arise from a place of genuine, not from resentment or revenge. When you emotionally away, it is to hurt it. But to protect your own energy and focus on your personal, this difference of intention is fundamental because it will perceive it and will react in a completely different man can distinguish between a woman who moves because she respects herself and a woman who moves away to manipulate him. In the first case, he respect and attraction. In the second case, feels annoyance and irritation. That is so important that work first on your own emotional before apply any seduction. And let me tell you something that I have observed in decades of therapy. The women who have most success in love are the who have learned to love themselves first. Don't need a man to them because they are already complete. They don't seek a man to give value because they already know how much or they expect a man to make happy because they have already found happiness in themselves. These women radiate a special energy that is magnetic for quality. They don't have pursue. They have beg. They don't have conform with less than they deserve. Good men naturally gravitate towards them because of that fullness, that security, that inner peace that is so attractive. But to reach this level of personal you, to do profound of self-knowledge, you need to identify and heal the emotional that make you seek external. You need the toxic that you and your family of origin or in past you need to develop a loving and respectful with yourself. And here comes the fifth part of the magnetic, which is the most powerful of all. The presence when you are with him. When you decide to be with this man, when you choose to your time and attention, you have to be completely present, completely connected, completely dedicated to that moment. This combination of strategic and total is devastatingly effective. He learns that your time is valuable, that your attention is given by sitting, but when it does, it is an incredible experience. It is like being in the desert and finding an oasis. The contrast makes those moments with you, but let me clarify something important. The full presence does mean that you have to be perfect or that have to please everything. It means that when you are with him, you are really there without distractions, without thinking about other men, without calculating. Your next strategic you are simply yourself, the best version of yourself. And this authenticity is what really makes men, not the manipulations, not the games, not the lies. The authenticity of a woman who knows, loves, and respects herself. A woman who does need to someone else to get love, because she already knows that is worthy of love as it is. Now, I want to talk to you about something that many women don't understand about men. We need the successful in our conquest. We need feel that we are your love, that we working hard for it, that we deserve it. When a woman surrenders too easily without us having show our worth, a primitive part of our brain feels unsatisfied. It's like winning a game without actually playing it. There is no sense of achievement. There is no real that is men quickly interest in women who are too easy to get. It is that we are cruel. It that our brain is programmed to value what requires effort. The magnetic gives man the opportunity to feel successful in the conquest. It allows to experience satisfaction of having won you, of having conquered you. And that sense of success in the conquest is what generates lasting love in men. That is, it is so important that you give too quickly, that you give up completely before he has demonstrated that he really values and respects. I am talking about playing children's, but about protecting your heart and your energy until he shows you. That gives me total to them. And here comes something crucial. Magnetic is not a technique that you want, and that's it is a lifestyle, a philosophy of relationship that has to become part of your personality. You have to incorporate these principles in such natural that you have to constantly think about what to or how to when magnetic becomes part of who you are. When you really live from a place of your own love, and emotional men perceive as something genuine, not as a strategy. And that is what makes so powerful. You are pretending to be valuable. You are valuable. You are pretending to have options. You really have them. You are pretending to be independent. You really are. But let me warn you about something. When you start applying these principles, will face resistance. Some men who are used to always you available will try to you feel guilty for your new behavior. They will say that you have changed, that you have become cold, that you are the same. And you right, you are longer the same. You are longer the woman who conformed to you are longer the woman who canceled her plans for any man. You are no the woman who begged for attention. Now you are a woman who respects herself, who knows her worth, who demands the treatment she deserves. Some men will handle this new version of you. Those who were comfortable with the previous, where they had all the power and you accepted anything, will feel uncomfortable with your new energy. And that's fine. Let them go. Don't. With a right for you in every way. The men who are really worth it, those who seek an equal, non-emotional, will respect your new attitude, will admire your self-respect, will feel challenged in the right way, motivated to be better men, to deserve your time and attention. And here comes the most beautiful of this whole process. When you're the magnetic from a genuine of your own love, only do your romantic, but improves your whole life. You become more selective with friendships, more demanding at work, more careful with how you use your time and energy. You start living from a place of abundance instead of scarcity, instead of accepting any opportunity out of fear that another better you, and look for the opportunities that you deserve. Instead of on to any man out of fear of being left alone, you wait for the man who really values now. I want you something very important about male that most women don't know. Men have two types of desire: physical and emotional desire. Physical desire. It is immediate, visceral, easy to generate, but it is also volatile and transitory. It lights up quickly, but it also goes out quickly. On hand. Is deeper and more. It is what makes us want to build a life with a woman. What us think of her when she is there. What us feel that we could live without her. And this kind of desire is generated by when a certain level of uncertainty, when we have to force ourselves to achieve our love. The magnetic specifically degenerating emotional in men. It is only about feeling physically attractive, but about not being stopped thinking about you, about feeling that our life would be incomplete without your presence. And let me tell you how this, that when a man cannot predict your behavior, when he does know exactly when will see you or talk to you, his brain enters what is called intermittent. It is the same mechanism that makes people addicted to gambling. The brain releases dopamine in an irregular, unpredictable, and that creates a constant of need. Man starts to think about you more frequently, to ask himself what you're doing, to plan when he will see you again. Literally, you become a mental for him in the most healthy and natural. That is so important that the absence is authentic, that you have a rich and interesting if he perceives that your absence is just a tactic, if you are pretending to be busy while you are waiting for it till the effect breaks completely. You have to feel that you have options, that you really investing in your own happiness, that you could really live without it if it were necessary. Only then will you start to value yourself in the way you deserve to be valued. And here comes something that may sound contradictory to you. To successfully the magnetic, you have to be genuinely willing to lose this man. You have to get to the point where you can say, honestly, I would for this work, but if it work, I will be fine anyway. This non-attachment is, paradoxically, what attracts men the one day that you need desperately, that your happiness does on them. Feel free from pressure, can connect with you in a more authentic. They can choose you for love, not for pity or guilt. But reaching this level of emotional is not easy, especially if you're used to seeking validation in relationships. It requires that you do deep work of self-knowledge and healing. You have to identify what emotional voids you are trying to through men and learn to fill them themselves. Most women who desperately to men do because they have emotional wounds they're healed. Perhaps they grew up without the unconditional love of their father. Perhaps they had previous relationships that deeply them. Perhaps never learned to value themselves, regardless of the opinion of others. And let me be clear, there is nothing wrong with having emotional. We all have them. The problem is when we those wounds to our decisions and behaviors in relationships. When we mend what we have to find in ourselves. That is why the magnetic is both a seduction and a personal development. It forces you to your insecurities, to work on your self-esteem, to build a life that is worth living independently of whether the man in it or not. And when you this transformation, something magical begins to happen in your life. The quality begin to appear naturally in your world. You don't have to desperately them in dating or bar. They find you because you radiate that magnetic energy that attracts the right people. But let me warn you about something important. When you to apply these principles, you will face tests. Will come into your life who will try to convince you to make exceptions, to lower your standards only this time, to to be more understanding with their limitations. Don't give up. These men are testing your resolution. They are seeing if you believe in your own value, or if it's just a facade that they can knock down with enough pressure. Keep your standards firm. No matter how attractive the man is, or how convincing his arguments, remember that men who really are worth it will ask you to lower your standards. They will work to meet them. Now, I want to share with you something that I have observed in my years as a therapist. There is a fundamental between women who end up in happy and lasting, and women who end up in problematic relationships. The first never stop investing in themselves. They never stop growing. They never allow that your identity is completely in the relationship. These women understand that or to keep love in a long term, you have to continue to be the type woman that your partner fell in love. You have to maintain that spark, that individuality, that passion for the life that initially you. It is about not committing yourself or not being a good partner. It is about finding the perfect between intimacy and independence, between love and self-respect, between giving to the other and keeping faithful to oneself. And let me tell you something that can change your perspective on relationships forever. True love does require you sacrifice who you are. True love inspires you to be the best version of yourself. If a man asks you to change the fundamental of your personality to be with him, that man does not really you. He loves you version of you that he created in his mind, the version that perfectly adapts to his needs and desires. But that not you. Eventually, that mask will fall off and he will feel disappointed and you will feel exhausted from pretending to someone you are that is so important that the magnetic arises from a real. It cannot be an act at you until he falls in, and then you has to be a real in your way of seeing yourself and valuing yourself. Now, I want to talk specifically about one of the most powerful of this technique, the management of digital in the era of WhatsApp, Instagram, and Constant Way, which digital can make you a relationship before it starts. Most women make terrible mistakes in digital immediately to all messages. They long an emotional chase after men with calls and texts when he does respond quickly. All this communicates desperation and low self-esteem. A man perceives immediately when a woman has nothing better to do than to be on the waiting for his messages. The magnetic and the digital requires discipline and self-control. When he sends you a message, not read it immediately. Let at least an hour before opening it. And when you do respond immediately. Take your time to think of an interesting and concise, never send long and dramatic. We men get of reading novels on WhatsApp. Keep your messages short, funny, intriguing. Let him make the effort to call you if he wants long conversations. And please never double send messages. If he does respond your first message, do not send another one asking why he did respond. That communicates insecurity and need. A woman who of herself sends a message and then forgets about phone because it has more important to do. But here comes the most important part. In order to apply these principles in digital, without going crazy, you live such an interesting life that you have time to be on the phone all day. If you're busy, bored, without projects or goals that excite you, it will be very difficult to temptation to be constantly reviewing what he has to you. That is why it's essential that you a life before trying to these techniques. And let me tell you something fascinating about mail in relation to messages. We interpret the speed of response as an indicator of interest, but also as an indicator of availability. If a woman always responds immediately, that she has nothing else to do. But if a woman takes to respond, if sometimes doesn't respond until the next day, our brain automatically assumes that must have an interesting and busy, and this makes more attractive to us. It's that we are superficial or evil. It's simply how our primitive brain what seems scarce, and we get with what is always available. Now I want a topic that many women find confusing. How to physical when you are applying magnetic. Some think that you have to become physically inaccessible to maintain male interest. This is a mistake. The magnetic is neither rigidity nor lack of physical. It's about maintaining a healthy between proximity and distance, between the delivery and the conservation of your personal, when you are with him. When you to be present, you can be completely affectionate and affectionate. You can enjoy physical without guilt or calculations. But what you cannot do is the sex as a currency exchange to gain attention or commitment. Men can distinguish between a woman who genuinely enjoys physical and a woman who uses as a tool for manipulation. The first is incredibly attractive to us. The second makes us feel uncomfortable and used. The key is that your physical is an expression of your genuine desire, not a strategy. When you want to be with him, when you feel attraction and affection, giving yourself physically is natural and beautiful. But if you're using sex to try to hook him, to get him to stay, to demonstrate how much you want, he will perceive it and will react negatively. He will feel the pressure and the manipulation, and that will go away instead of attracting. That is so important that you a healthy relationship with your own sexuality, that you to enjoy physical for the pleasure that you, not for what you can achieve through it. A woman who knows and values her own pleasure does need sexual to feel good with herself, who can say yes or no based on her own desire, is irresistible. Now, let me tell you about an aspect of the magnetic that very few women master. The art of magnetic. It's just about but about how you when you say it, and what you unsaid. Men quickly bored predictable if you always talk about the same topics, if you always react in the same way, if you are completely transparent at all times, you are interest. The magnetic requires that you assert an air of mystery. Do tell your whole life in the first quotes. Do reveal all your opinions on all the topics. Let him discover different aspects of your personality gradually. Ask intelligent that they make think. Challenge your opinions respectfully. Show that you have and that you always agree with them. Men, we women who can hold stimulating conversations and learn the art of pause, do fill all silences with words. Sometimes leaving an intriguing comment and then changing the subject can be much more effective than explaining everything in detail. Remember that anticipation is more powerful than satisfaction. If you give all the information at once, if you all your questions completely, you curiosity. And curiosity is what keeps a man thinking of you. When you are, it is important that your sense of humor. We men fall with women who can make us laugh, who can laugh at themselves, who do take everything too seriously. But be careful with the type of humor you use. Self-critical humor can communicate low self-esteem. Sarcastic humor can seem bitter. Too direct can make you look like a sexual instead of potential the most attractive is that naturally from the situation. That shows your intelligence and your ability to see the fun side of life without hurting anyone in the process. Now I want to about something that's fundamental for the long term of any relationship, the ability to maintain your own happiness, regardless of what is happening in the relationship. Many women commit the mistake of allowing their emotional state to completely on the behavior of their partner. If he is in a good mood, they are happy. If he is distant, they are anxious. If he does not look for a daze, they panic. This emotional dependence is toxic for any relationship. It is huge on man who feels that he is responsible for your happiness. And it also steals your personal power, turning your well-being into something that is out of your control. The magnetic requires that you what I call internal, emotional. This means that your happiness, your peace, your security come mainly from within, not of external like the behavior of others. When you this emotional, when you can genuinely be well with yourself, regardless of what happens in your relationships, you become magnetic to quality. They perceive that inner peace and want to be part of it. But developing emotional stability is not easy, especially if you have a story of codependent or traumatic requires therapeutic work, self-knowledge, and a lot of self-compassion. You have to learn to be your own best friend, your own source of consolation, your own cheerleader. You have to develop the capacity to calm yourself when you're anxious, to you when you are sad, to you when you're discouraged. And let me be clear, this does mean that you have to become an emotional that does need anyone. It means that while you enjoy the company and the love of others, you depend on them for your basic well-being. Now, want to share with you one of the most challenging parts of applying the magnetic dealing with the anxiety that can arise when you have total over the result. When you this technique, when you strategically from and focus on your own life, a lot of anxiety, your mind will try to convince you that you are making a mistake, that you are to lose, that you should return to the previous of persecution. This anxiety is normal and expected. Your primitive trying to protect you from the danger of potential, but it's important that you do let this anxiety make you desperate instead of seeing anxiety as a sign that you are something wrong. Treat it as information. Your anxiety is showing you areas where you need to work on your self-esteem and your ability to be alone. Use techniques of handling anxiety, such as breathing, meditation, physical exercise, or talk to friends of trust. But do you use contact with as a way to calm your anxiety. That would reinforce the dependent that you are trying to break. And remember that anxiety decreases with time when you consistently your new attitude. Your brain eventually gets used to the new dynamic and ceases to perceive the strategic as a threat. In fact, when you get to being comfortable with uncertainty in relationships, when you stop needing constant that everything is fine, you become much more attractive to men. Despair for sure is repulsive. Comfort with ambiguity is magnetic. Now, let me tell you about an error that many women commit. When are positive with the magnetic trust, each two quickly and return to the previous. When he starts looking to more, when he starts showing more interest, when he starts making more effort, many women interpret this as a sign that they can relax and be the woman they were before. Error gareful. The magnetic is not a technique that you until you get the man and then you him. It is a lifestyle that you have to maintain to preserve your interest and respect in long term. If you are available again 24 hours a day, if you cancel all your plans when he looks you, if you pursue him again with messages and calls, he will lose interest as quickly as he won. We men need to feel that we are winning. To our partner, if feel that we have guaranteed that we know have to work hard, we motivation and interest. That is why crucial that you your own life, your social even when the relationship is working well. This is being cold or calculating. It being complete who does disappear in her relationships. And let me tell you something that may sound harsh, but it is true. Men lose attraction to women who become completely predictable. If we know exactly how you're going to react in each situation, if we know that you'll be available when we need you, if we know that you will challenge or surprise us, we get it's that we are cruel or superficial. It's that our brain is programmed to seek novelty and challenge. A relationship without elements of surprise and uncertainty becomes monotonous for us. That is so important that you continue grow, evolve, develop new interests and skills. Even when you are already unstable, you have to continue to an interesting and unpredictable. This keeps the spark in a relationship and ensures that it continues to see you as a valuable woman that is worth conquering every day, not as a possession that is secured. Now, I want to address a question that many women ask me. How to apply the magnetic if you are already in a relationship established where it has been too available. Changing the dynamics of an existing relationship is more challenging than establishing the correct from beginning, but it is not impossible. It requires patience, consistency, and the ability to certain confusion, and even initial from your partner. First, have the changes gradually. You cannot stop being the woman who is available to be completely inaccessible from night to morning. That would be too abrupt and could create unnecessary start by making small changes. It takes a little longer to respond to your messages. Occasionally, say that you have plans when you go out. Invest more time in your own interests and hobbies. Second, don't explain what you're doing. Don't tell that you are applying a technique or that you are trying to change the dynamics of the relationship. Simply start behaving differently and let him notice the changes in himself. If he asks you why you're acting differently, simply tell him that you're focusing more on your personal, that you are up activities that you had neglected, that you are prioritizing your well-being. Third, keep the changes consistently, even if he reacts negatively at the beginning. It is normal for feel confused or even upset if he was used to always you available. Do give up to pressure returning to the previous patterns. Fourth, make sure that when you are with him, you are genuinely present and affectionate. The idea is to him or make him feel bad, but to rebalance the relationship towards something more equitable and healthy. If after several months of consistently these changes, he continues to react negatively, it continues to try to manipulate you. For you to be the woman you were before, you must evaluate seriously if this relationship is you. A man who cannot adapt to a more empowered of you, who cannot respect your personal, who prefers to have you in an inferior position, is not the right for you. Now, let me tell you about something that's crucial for success of any seduction, the congruence between your external and your internal. You simply pretend to know magnetic presence while internally you desperate for attention. Men have a very fine to detect emotional incongruity. We can feel when a woman is acting differently to how she feels. That is so important that you work on your self-esteem and personal development, in parallel to applying these techniques. You have to reach the point where you believe that you're the best, where you really have a full and interesting where you can be fine without it. When there is congruence between your behavior and your feelings, when you really live from a place of abundance and self-respect, the magnetic becomes natural and authentic. It is not something that you have to remember to do. It's simply who you are, and this authenticity is what makes it so powerful. We men can distinguish between a woman who is playing games and a woman who genuinely values herself. The first can work temporarily, but the second creates attraction. Let me also talk about the importance of having support while these changes. Changing deeply rooted is not easy, and you will need emotional support during the process. Surround yourself with friends who understand what you are trying to achieve, who support your efforts to respect yourself. Avoid people who try to sabotage your growth, who tell you that you're being too demanding or too difficult. Also consider seeking professional if you have difficulties in implementing these changes. A good therapist can help you identify and heal the emotional wounds that keep you in codependent, and don't be afraid to take time for yourself when you need it. If you feel that you're falling into old patterns, if you're chasing a man or begging for attention, take some time to reconnect with your values and objectives. Remember that the ultimate goal is not to any man. The ultimate goal is to bring the one who can appreciate and value you when you behave with dignity and self-respect. Now, as we approach the end of this transforming talk, I want you with some final reflections that hope you with you forever. First, never forget that your value as a woman does depend on whether a specific man chooses you or not. You are valuable for who you are, for what you have to offer the world, for the unique light that you to the lives of the people around you. Second, never conform with less than what you deserve out fear being alone. Temporary is preferable to a relationship that does nourish you, that does respect you, that does inspire you to be the best version of yourself. Third, remember that true love never requires you sacrifice your dignity. If you have to beg for it, manipulate it, or humiliate yourself to get it, it is not true love. Fourth, understand that applying magnetic is an act of self-love, not manipulation. It is to your emotional energy until you're someone who values adequately. And fifth, never stop investing in yourself. Keep growing, learning, evolving. Keep yourself interesting not to attract men, but because you to a rich and full life. The magnetic is much more than seduction. It is a philosophy of life that teaches you to value yourself to yourself and protect yourself while you seek true love. It is a way to assure you that any relationship you is nutritious, respectful, and mutually satisfactory. And when you from this place, when you really incorporate these principles into your daily life, not only does it your romantic changes everything. You become more selective with friendships, more demanding at work, more careful with how you your time and energy. You begin to live like the valiant you've been, but you may have forgotten who were. You begin to make decisions from your own, not from fear. You begin to build a life that really excites you too, and that life, that energy, that fullness is what naturally quality. You don't have to go out looking them desperately. You don't have to conform with the first ones who show interest. They find you,